There are seats here in the front, please. Good evening, everyone. Let me welcome you all on behalf of the Center for China Analysis and Strategy. And I think I'd like to thank everyone who's braved the rain and come here. And it's actually, we were expecting very few people because of the rain. But I think Mr. Ranade has a huge fan following that today it's still houseful in spite of the rain. So thank you all for coming. So the Center for China Analysis and Strategy, as you all know, has been in existence for 11 years. We have done some work that only we can take credit as a center has done. You can see the work that we have displayed, the PLA directory, the PLA Navy. We have also done the full members of CC directory. There's a tremendous work that has been done at the center. And today we are all here to launch Mr. Ranade's new book, his 5th book, which is China, the Hardening State. So first, let us formally launch the book. So I'll request all the panelists, there's a copy of the book there. If you could please just, unwrap it and please stand for a photograph. Thank you. Thank you. So today, more than the book, we'll be discussing a lot of other things around China. And I think right after the SCO summit, it's a very important discussion that's going to unfold. So I will not take you away from the discussion, take a lot of time. So I'll just briefly introduce Mr. Sandeep Unnithan, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Mr. Sandeep Unnithan is the editor-in-chief of Chakra News, an independent digital news organization. He is also a consulting editor with India Today Group, digital and TV platforms. Sandeep has 30 years of experience as a journalist across the Indian Express, India Today, and TV9 networks. He was editor, News 9 Plus, India's first OTT news app for 3 years until March 2025. Before I hand over to Mr. Sandeep Unnithan, I just want to make a small announcement. Today, Mr. Ranade's book is available for a 40% discount, and he's right here for you to autograph. So please feel free and buy as many copies as you can. Thank you so much. Sandeep, over to you.
Thanks very much, Namrata. And, Mr. Ranade, I don't know how you pulled this off. I can't, was it the SEO summit that you pulled off before the book launch? How did you manage that? We were talking about how a little while ago, how he managed to pull off August audience in September, and a rainy September at that. But that's the pull of your books and who you are really, the fact that you managed to write these books at the rate that the Chinese produce electric vehicles, I think.
The Chinese keep on in business, Sandeep. I mean, they are always up to something or the other.
Right. And
so you have grist to the mill.
and we are lucky to have an avid China watcher like you in our midst. But, without much ado, I mean, the panelists on stage need no introduction. And I was just telling Mr. Ranade, it's like a journalist walking into a bar which has a spy chief, a general, and a distinguished diplomat. What more can a journalist ask for, especially someone who's been covering defense and security for so many years? But, Mr. Ranade, we're just 24 hours after that rather historic photo opportunity, the Tianjin Tango or the Tianjin Trio or Troika or whatever you call it. What's your first takeaway from what we saw yesterday? Is this a sign of things to come, or is this truly groundbreaking, or is it just optics? Give us your initial sense on what we saw yesterday.
I think you're asking me less than 24 hours after this happened. So there are quick initial comments. But I would say that these indicate tactical and tentative first moves. Signs of the wide differences that exist between the Chinese and us are evident in the joint statements and in the speeches made by Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping. Just to mention a couple of things, the territorial issues and a few others are there. And also, there's one, shall I say, odd development, which is the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chi, who is the Politburo Standing Committee member. But he's like, you can say, the shadow of Xi Jinping. I mean, he goes, accompanies him everywhere. He's in charge of his personal office. He's a key man there. But he doesn't meet foreign leaders. He's essentially, like you can say, the principal secretary to a prime minister, but a very powerful principal secretary.
Not in India. Chi's counterpart.
We wouldn't have one, really speaking. Not that kind of authority. Because he oversees the security arrangements, he oversees the personal office, he oversees his scheduling, and conducts all the important nitty-gritty that is the work of the general office. So I think that was unusual. It can be interpreted in two ways. One, that there were some issues that were left over in the discussion between Xi and Modi, and that needed to be sorted out, or that there were some ticklish issues which Chi was asked to look into. But the intriguing comment was the one in the Indian Express, which said that the Chinese had offered that Chi would host a banquet for Prime Minister Modi. I'm glad that didn't happen, because it would have at least symbolically appeared to be a downgrading of the equations. But I think overall, I would say it's a good first move, and probably Trump gave it some impetus.
Right. Trump, the accelerator. But General Shukla, I want to come to you now. You've been looking at the military for several decades, and of course, in your last appointment in the army, you were studying a change in our strategy vis-a-vis China. And the interesting thing about Xi Jinping is that he's possibly the first Chinese leader since Mao to consistently appear in military fatigues. I possibly think that's something that we missed. And you have, on the other hand, you have Prime Minister Modi as someone who also understands hard power, right? And we've just seen it a few months back with Operation Sindoor, where we crossed some red lines that were not crossed in probably half a century. You have these two powerful leaders who've both initiated military reforms, right? Xi Jinping began his more than a decade ago. Prime Minister Modi has begun his just about a decade ago. And now you have the situation on the border. You have troops in the theater. They have disengaged, but they're still in theater. There is a possibility that there could be some flashpoint at some point. How do you, when you're looking at it from India's perspective, how do you reform under fire? The fact that you are actively deployed along two fronts. How do you reform when you're doing that?
On a lighter note, we manage not to reform even under intense fire. I mean, that's the problem. What a more serious, I was Mr. Ranade's writings, the rate at which he writes are certainly faster than the pace of military reform.
Right.
Military reform,
yes.
And it's a very serious issue, and I think you reach a very pertinent point, because it is my belief that this government, 2014, it initiated, I think, the most game-changing set of national security reforms.
Right.
CDS, DMA. I keep making this point that CDS, DMA, the way it has been fashioned in our context, is even more powerful than Barry Goldwater Nichols. New normals in our strategic outlook, Atmanirbharta in defense, defense coming out of the shadows of foreign policy. But what has happened is, as phase 2 of reforms have got stuck, you made this comparison with Z. I mean, the first chapter I pulled out of this book is the chapter on the Western Theatre Command. So I'll tell you one myth which was going around, that Taiwan was their primary orientation. Right. Mr. Ranade punctures that myth in this. I'll give you one example. The Western Theatre Commander looks at 6 countries. He's looking at Bangladesh, Myanmar, India, the CPEC. In our case, let's say theatre commands. After Sindoor, we are retracing. I mean, those things are already
You
out.
had the fireside chat with
Absolutely.
the air chief just last week.
Exactly. So where we are stuck is that those phase 2 reforms are not moving. And as Mr. Ranade records in this book, Xi has nursed the reform of the military. Which political leader spends 2 days in an infantry academy, 3 days in an aviation school? In fact, the sacking of these generals is part corruption, part deep disappointment with generals who are not ready for the Taiwan contingency, those who are in corruption. So, the pace of Chinese reform. I can give you so many examples, but just one. People say that the focus is on the economy, but if you look at the military, the PLA has undergone the most massive military modernization in the history of mankind. Look at DeepSeek. DeepSeek has 211 engineers. What should worry us is that 70% of them have not left the shores of China, so talent is inside. And what should worry us even more, that 30 of them are from the PLA. And DeepSeek is into WTCs. I mean, so their rate of reform is far
civil
faster,
military fusion.
and all kinds of stuff. So the short answer is that our rate of military reform, at least in phase 2, has not kept up. And here, if I may make one point, I mean, it may be an unpopular thing to say, but for long we have blamed the politician. The second set of reforms are stuck because of the inability of the civil, military, bureaucratic, and technological leadership. I'm talking of the bureaucracy level. I mean, now you have to do it. And see what is going to happen. Let's take this theatre command. Just give me 30 seconds. Sure. See, what is the argument? That Sindoor, air power was important, so we should not move forward. In fact, if you see Midnight Hammer, the lesson is that air power in theaterized structures. It is not Marine Corps, Navy, Army which have performed, but Stratcom, Eurocom, CENTCOM. They have delivered. Now, if we take precisely these wrong lessons, look at DRDO reforms. Startups which did very well in the first phase, regulation is back. So if we don't take the second phase of reforms forward, how will we be able to cope up with the PLA? So the short answer is that these reforms are working faster than ours.
Right. As are many other things. But I want to come to you, Ambassador Sikri. Now, it's clear that Xi Jinping doesn't like us very much, right? Whatever the photo ops may suggest, he's just, because of the exigencies of the moment. And there is very clear evidence of Chinese intelligence and military hardware, backstopping Pakistan's military. Especially we saw that front and center during Operation Sindoor. And across the Atlantic, we have President Donald Trump. And I never thought I'd see the day when we'd see an Indian Prime Minister and a Chinese President call out the US for bullying tactics. So India is in a sense caught between these two, a rock and a hard place, if I can call it that. How does one handle the situation? Unpredictable Donald Trump versus a hardening Xi Jinping?
Well, as Jayadeva just said, it's been only 24 hours. So to form any definitive assessments or judgments would be premature. But I don't think we should look at Xi Jinping as somebody who doesn't like India. I don't think that these things matter. It is national interest which will play there. And I see what has happened in the last few days as a potential, I emphasize potential, transformative phase in global politics. Needless to say, all our concerns are not going to go away in one meeting, whether it is the border, whether it is the economic relationship, whether it is Pakistan, terrorism, Indian Ocean, you name it. All these issues will remain. But at least I see, and I'm not a China specialist, so please forgive me, the China specialist, that I think that we have now Wang Yi's visit, some movement on the border. Let's see what happens in practice. We'll talk about delineation of the line. Well, that's big.
if it even starts a little bit, you know. We've reverted back to political parameters and guiding principles of relations. I think that is useful reiteration. She talks about Panchsheel also. Now, these are not accidental statements. They are signaling something. And I was struck by what Jayadev has written in one of his chapters, and which was reiterated in subsequent. I just read it out. He says that, he's quoting one of the scholars, that says that there are limits to US-India cooperation because of conflicting objectives and lack of trust. India sees closer ties with the US as the best way to achieve its great power ambitions, but India won't sacrifice its strategic autonomy. The Indo-Pacific strategy will fall away as China and India rise together. We have many common interests and similar developmental challenges. This is what Mr. Ranade wrote in November 21, which is almost 4 years ago. And I think that there are some people in China, there are, I suppose, different schools of thought in China also, who probably see this as an opportunity. Because I don't think that the Chinese will trust the Americans. You know, you talk about G2 and so forth. Right. I don't think that they will trust them. And if I were to look at my own analysis and experience of India-China relations over the last 25 years or more, there was an ascendant phase till about 2005-06, when we had the 1993 agreement, the 96 agreement, the special representatives for the border in 2003, Sikkim, 2005, political parameters and guiding principles. I think that was going quite well. In fact, that political parameters and guiding principles was a huge leap of faith on both sides. And Shyam Saran is here. He was the foreign secretary who negotiated that in part. There were many conflicting voices. My own sense is that the turning point, you know, I just want to mention one or two incidents from personal experience. In 2005 was the first time that we were invited to the SCO as an observer. And Mr. Natwar Singh was representing India. I accompanied him. Before the visit, before we went to Astana, we got a message from the Chinese that President Hu Jintao wants to meet Natwar Singh. Okay, this suggested a time. Mr. Natwar Singh, and those of you who knew him would understand what I'm saying. No, ye theek nahi hai, time theek nahi hai. Change karo. Changed. They accepted it. The meeting that took place in Astana, this is now in early July 2005.
This is when you were envoy to
No, I was
Kazakhstan.
I was secretary in
Right.
MEA. Shyam Saran was the foreign secretary. I was secretary, and dealing with other issues also. My impression of that meeting was that Hu Jintao was sending a message to India. Look, we know you're going to America. Don't do anything that would upset our relationship, because we had just signed that strategic and cooperative partnership. And then, as the Indo-US relationship became stronger, we had the separation plan, and Bush came to India, and so on and so forth. If you remember, the first time the Chinese laid claim to the whole of Arunachal was in 2006, when they judged that we were firmly with the American camp.
when the Indo-US nuclear deal
After that,
was
yeah,
all right. Yeah.
there was that. So what I'm trying to suggest is that the American factor in India-China relations has always been there. And it is from that time onwards that the deterioration has started. Now that there is a deterioration in India-US relations, maybe the Chinese are seeing that this is an opportunity. I'm not saying that we trust the Chinese, but we still have to look for openings. Because in this today's world, which is so fluid, there could be opportunities that we could just miss.
Right.
And I think it has always been India's contention that we should work together. Manmohan Singh was repeatedly talking about Asia and the world is big enough for India and China and so forth, And this was echoed. I participated in many meetings between India and China, and the atmosphere was very different. So here is a moment of opportunity. I'm not saying that we go gaga about it, but we have to carefully explore while keeping our guard up, while keeping our military posture robust.
Absolutely. As General
But-
Shukla would say, trust but verify.
Yeah, that of course is there. So here is, I think, a moment of opportunity.
Moment of opportunity indeed. And, I was just reminded when you were speaking, Ambassador Sikri, about what Vladimir Lenin said many years ago about there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And it's like we are playing the T20 of geopolitics now. There's something happening every single day. And, we have a hard time keeping track of that. But, Mr. Ranade, the title of your book is very interesting. The China, the Hardening State, which implies that it's still a work in progress. The process is still on. When does the complete solidification happen? Is it going to be 2049 or much before that? I'm asking because, there are military consequences to all of this.
No, certainly there are. 2049 is the target date, which Xi Jinping has laid on. But when I say hardening of the state, it's hardening from within and externally. And we are seeing that. Internally, Xi Jinping has started efforts since the time he came, so 2013, let's say, 2012 he came in, end of 2012, to raise, now this is the second or third generation of Chinese who are going to have, as he puts it, red genes in them. He's going to instill in them communist ideology as they grow up. And that starts from nursery or kindergarten. So that's one effort that he's doing. The second, he's trying to see to it that there's no, what he calls Western liberal ideas coming in. Their professors are being monitored. So that's one part of it, internal. The people have been put under intense surveillance. Even ordinary people, if you go onto a train or anything like that, you got to do facial recognition and go. They have a social credit management system, which is where your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, your co-workers, everyone awards you a point. And depending on that, you're allocated a place of stay, or your children can go to school or can't go to school. You can fly or you can't fly. So it's becoming a really, I would say Orwell was way behind, what Xi Jinping is trying.
Actually, the title of that book should be 2025, not
2025.
1984.
And technology is helping him.
Right.
But even on external relations, you'll see that since Xi Jinping came, there's been a hardening of the line, not only with us, but even with others. And there was a conference held in 2013 on peripheral diplomacy, which is with the neighbors, where for the first time in their history, they designated countries as friends, and they didn't call them enemies, but they said and others. And the friends were promised a lot of, financial assistance, security, etc. The others were promised lengthy periods, or they said protracted periods of pressure. And I think if we look at what happened since 2020, that was us. 2020 was, I think, in a way, a very important period. It was an important action taken by Xi Jinping. It was planned, or rather he'd taken the decision in 2016, 2017. It was operationalized, operationalized in 2020. And I think since then, there has been literally a change. Since 2020 till today, or till October 24, there was no contact between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi. At the leadership level, there was no contact. Wang Yi was the only one who was talking. But coming to now, I think Wang Yi's visit was also, as Rajiv said, it was important for a signal that it gave. our foreign minister raised the issues of fertilizers, rare earths, and the tunnel boring machines. And Wang Yi said, I've taken note of it. And I think by that evening, he had sort of conveyed that we'll approve it. So I think that's a forward movement. The rest of it, of course, we saw at this meeting. But as I said, there are wide differences still there. But I think both sides are taking advantage of, what's
the window of opportunity.
Of the window of opportunity. Yeah. But neither side has given up anything. And for us particularly, this hardening state is relevant because if you look at the border, Raj will know much more, but still, there has been no reduction in forces.
Yes.
And in fact, we have seen, though Depsang and Demchok have been mentioned, we have spotted new formations around Demchok and increased activity by their propaganda units, etc., in these areas. So I don't know, whether there is any softening at all. There may be a tactical pause. And the next tension points are, I would say, on the Dalai Lama's reincarnation. That will be another pressure point that will come up. So I think hardening state is a fair assessment.
Right, absolutely. And General Shukla, I want to come to you on that point that Mr. Ranade mentioned about the hardening state. In the military terminology also there is something called hardening, which is when you harden your defenses. And this is a scenario that India has perhaps never faced in the past. We've never had an aspiring superpower at our doorstep. Possibly the last Indian ruler to have faced that was Maharaja Ranjit Singh when he saw the East India Company advancing towards his frontiers. But how would we harden our defenses against this hardening state of Xi Jinping?
So, the challenges are pretty complicated. So, let's talk of Chinese intent first. Indian militaries and Western militaries, we all swear by Clausewitz. So Clausewitz said, trickery, deception, these are weapons of the weak. Sun Tzu says they are weapons of choice. Deception is built in their statecraft. How does it play out? They tell the world, peaceful rise. They tell their military officers, their party bureaucrats, 100-year marathon. Beat the Chinese in 100 years. How do you assess Chinese intent? Look at this piece of this data from Mr. Ranade's book. So their 14th five-year plan for Western Theatre Command for infra 2030 to 35 is 4 railways, 3 highways, 40 additional airfields. Their infra is already 4 times the size of us. What do they want to do? But what should really worry us, that in the same chapter, they say that the operational plans for reconquest of southern Tibet 2035-40, 2040.
That's us.
That's them, us. So now, do you trust the Chinese? You can. What do you do with this? So the only answer to the Chinese is deterrence. So let me make one more point. The challenge before us, statecraft, is also the strategic military piece today, is to plot our eyes between this contest, between this distant hegemon and the near hegemon. You said superpower.
Yes.
The distant hegemon which is declining and retreating, and this predates Trump. You take the economy. PPP terms, percentage of global GDP, which is today it is 1916 China, USA, 1916. By 2035, it'll be 24-14. What does that tell you? 24-14. And look at military capacity. I'm quoting Admiral Paparo in the Western Pacific. He says the ratio of ships is 6:1. China, USA. The Americans are struggling with 7 days of precise munitions in Taiwan. The Chinese have a surge capacity of 10,000 cruise missiles a week. The figures are stunning. Xiaomi churns out a car every 78 seconds. And they work in this military, the civil military fusion. So everything translates to the military. So that's one point. So India and China have to find a modus vivendi between themselves. This hegemon is not there. The hope was technology, trust, Indus X. And Trump has, in one sweep, That's gone.
He's driven a truck into a 25-year-old
Exactly.
structure.
So our problems are two. One is, you see, strategic autonomy is a prized foreign policy objective, but we need friends. You look at the evolving security architecture. Israeli air power would have been nothing without all that the Americans gave them on a platter, from the air defense, to space and all that. Pakistan gets all this stuff, Baidu, EW, Cyber, again on a platter. Who is our technology partner? We need a technology partner. So we have to calibrate our strategic autonomy with our technological sovereignty and operational poise. It impacts you. So the last point that I wish to make is this, that what we can do now, and I know this, I'm just, throwing a thought, it is not a mature thought, having now rebalanced to the north majorly, I mean, there's nothing left now. Can the Chief of Defense Staff tell the government tell the Chief of Defense Staff that you've balanced totally, these are your technologies, and there are many startups, persistent surveillance. With this, please ensure fail-proof deterrence along the LAC. Right. See, the problem today is that deterrence failures along the LAC hold the whole relationship to hostage. That's not fair. How does trade, commerce, investment and all move? It can't be held hostage to these failures along the LAC.
Saying that it's important to be deter the Chinese on the LAC.
Yes, so deter along the LAC and let the other stuff grow. Another point, I mean, you can have 100 flights to Beijing, but also increase your defense spending by 0.01. It makes no sense not to do this. So deterrence is costly, but wars are costlier. So I'm making an argument for deterrence. And the other thing that I would wish to offer is that in other areas, the gap is so huge that we have to say detente, which is what? Peace to buy time. Because sleepwalking into a conflict will be a bigger failure. Absolutely. So this is an outline strategy for the consideration of people.
So it's like what the Chinese did, which was hide your strength and bide your time. And I was just, your observations on the Chinese thing is spot on. I mean, the Chinese...
Can I just make one point?
Yeah, absolutely. Please,
See,
please.
How have they developed? I mean, it's phenomenal. 2002, the chairman of the National Defense University of China says we are translating every word that Andrew Marshall writes. Andrew Marshall was this great strategic mind who... Yeah, so they were willing to copy the Americans. They did all that when they needed to. But today, as Mr. Ranade records, they are loud and proud. Yeah, they know that in the first island chain, I am now quoting Paparo, the aircraft carriers cannot ingress. Yeah. They have to keep off.
A2D strategy.
Paparo has been screaming for the last 2 months. Nobody is listening to him. He says they are no longer exercises; they are rehearsals for attack.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, the Chinese adding the Chinese Navy, the PLA Navy is adding one Indian Navy every 5 years, and they're adding more.
Building capacities
is huge. I mean, there's lots of lessons for us to learn here. But I want to go to you, Ambassador Sikri, about the point that General Shukla was making about deception, and all warfare is deception, as Sun Tzu said. But here we are faced with the distant hegemon and the near hegemon. And there is this fear amongst a few of us here in Delhi, is that old formulation of the group of two, the G2, will at some point rear its head. We are not seeing the US use the Indo-Pacific coinage anymore. I mean, the Trump administration has started using the China-friendly Asia-Pacific terminology. Do you see this? The Quad is already on the back burner from what we hear. Do you see this as a permanent state of things to come, where the United States has ceded space to China? They've stopped trying to contain the rise of China. They know it's failed, and therefore now you accommodate them in whatever way you can.
If I were Chinese, I would not trust the Americans. So a G2 has many problems. Yes, it is theoretically possible, and there were attempts during Clinton's presidency and later during Barack Obama's presidency, and now there's talk which is surfacing again. But first is, does China trust the US? Because see what has happened to Indo-Soviet, Indo-US relations after 25 years of a steadily upward path. See what the Americans are doing in Pakistan, what they have done in Bangladesh and propose to do there. if they want to establish bases in South Asia and Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are directed as much against India as against China and so forth. I don't think the Chinese are unaware that there is a potential threat. The American strategy has not changed. Maybe there's less emphasis on, containing China via the Indo-Pacific. But, so that's the first point. The second is that even if they try to do it, will it work? Because the Chinese will face headwinds from whom? From Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Australia, India, and Russia. I don't think Russia is prepared for a G2. So, apart from the fact that if the Chinese want to behave like a hegemon in the American style, what does it do to their image and activities and reputation in the global south? Are the Chinese, they could start on that path, but if they flop, they're in great difficulty. So, I doubt if the Chinese will fall for the American proposal, if there is one, of a G2. I don't see that happening. And, well, there, for one, something which concerns us directly. What about US-China competition in Pakistan? There's Iron Friend, and now
Iron Brothers.
Iron Brother, whatever it is. And what the Americans are seeking to do. How will Pakistan finesse this? I don't know what the Chinese are thinking about what the Americans and the Pakistanis.
I was going to ask Mr. Ranade that, I had a word for this. This is the Field Marshal Asim Munir's Ajay Devgan maneuver, where he's balancing these two motorcycles. One's Trump and the other one is Xi. What are the Pakistanis up to here? And how did they, pull this maneuver off? I know because tomorrow is the parade, and it seems that the Field Marshal is there, and he's going to be part of the erstwhile axis of evil. So, what's the game plan with the Pakistanis and the Chinese?
I think, if I may say that the Pakistanis are trying to, shall I say, mend fences and get closer to the Americans, primarily for getting whatever financial support, etc. they can. But I would say that regardless of what they plan, the Chinese are deeply embedded in Pakistan. They're there in every virtually, they're through the hinterland of Pakistan, they're there in their telecommunications.
CPEC.
Everywhere. So I don't know what leeway the Pakistanis have really. And the Chinese are there in Gwadar, they're there in Karachi, they've got bases in Peshawar, etc. So I don't see the Pakistanis having much wiggle room, as I may say. But certainly a couple of points of concession, which maybe they were able to get, or maybe it was a combined effort, was the Americans listing the BLA and the TRF, etc. as foreign terrorist entities. In fact, that satisfies the Chinese more than anyone else. But so these kind of concessions. But I don't find the Americans really getting in there unless they're prepared to really, shall I say, bankroll the Pakistanis out of the Chinese debt, etc., which is, I don't think is feasible or possible. So I think the Pakistanis are stuck with the Chinese, at least for some time to come. Unless there is a massive change in the Chinese structure, which I don't see happening right away. Anything is possible, but I don't think that's likely to happen. So I think it's, for Pakistan, there's not much they're going to get. But it could make life difficult for us, if the Americans go that way. And if I can just say a word on this G2, I think the Chinese are not, or rather Xi Jinping is not willing for a G2. His sights are set on being the number one.
He wants a G1.
Yeah, in 2049. And if you see what Trump has been doing after a lot of bluff and bluster, he's actually being giving concessions to the Chinese right through. So, and the Chinese have been playing a very smart game. You remember there was a lot of noise about denying the Chinese students visas to come in and study in American universities, etc. Everyone went, loud on the rhetoric. And then the Chinese reached out to Xi Jinping, to Trump, saying, you shouldn't do this and let the students come. And he doubled down. So they just turned off the tap on rare earths. And the United States crumbled within a day. And the next day, Trump was on TV saying, I, in fact, have always wanted the students to come, etc. But whereas the Chinese said, okay, we will give you the rare earths, but they have laid down very tough conditions. They've said that each company must apply independently for its quota of rare earths. They've asked for all kinds of details, and they said we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So only one US company has till today got rare earths. So the Chinese are no fools. And I think after the rare earth pressure that Xi Jinping put on Trump, his popularity has soared on Chinese social media. He's on top of the world. Criticism of his handling of the US, which was coming, has stopped. So he's in a dominant position, he's in a strong position, and I don't see him being willing to make any concessions for Trump right now.
No concessions for Trump right now. But before I wrap, one final question to General Shukla before I throw it open to the audience. This point about the Iron Brothers that Mr. Ranade made, it complicates our situation. We saw that in Operation Sindoor, where you saw Chinese intelligence hardware being supplied to the Pakistanis, intel given in real time. And one of your colleagues told me this many years back when we were talking about the two-front war. And he said, somewhere 15, 20 years down the line, the two fronts are going to merge into a single front, where we will be fighting China all across the LAC and the LOC. You think that moment has already come now with Sindoor?
Yeah, before I come to that, I just want to make a quick point about the American military. If you look at the deeper debates in the MAGA camp, Steve Bannon, Bridge Colby, Mike Waltz, there was this whole debate about a global military and a military confined to America and the Western Hemisphere. And why is that debate, those deep debates? If you take the debt that America has today, it is $37 trillion. Debt servicing, $1 trillion. Bigger than their defense budget. They're in serious trouble, $975 billion. And economists will tell you that when debt servicing exceeds the defense budget, it is the beginning of decline. So many of these people are arguing for their military or for America to retreat to the Western Hemisphere, to repair their military and heal their economy. It does seem to me, if you read those and a few others, they will soon outsource the containment of Russia to Europe, maintain a presence in the Western Pacific, but South Asia to China. And here, see what should really trouble us. It is just not collusivity. You look at how the Chinese are operating. I mean, Admiral Shekhar Sinha put it very well. He said, what one front, two front? There is China on every front. And see, look at the evidence now. Yeah. Western horizons, Pakistan, Turkey. The Turkish defense minister and the minister for defense industries have visited Pakistan and Bangladesh twice in the last 3 months. It should worry us. Pakistan, Turkey, terror, and a not too friendly USA. This side, you have Bangladesh, and all that's going on, QMG, ISI, Lal Moner Haat. It's a new national security reality. So if I'm China, why should I trouble you along the LAC? I don't need to when I can envelop you from these two flanks. I think that's what China is doing. Right. So it is collusivity plus, far more than just Pak-China. It should really worry us. And see, what can we do now? That's the answer. I'll give you one example. Look at Ukraine, a country without a navy, without an air force, and this should just sink in, has held the mighty Russians at bay for 3 years. On the back of what? Technological innovation.
And of course, NATO.
So can we not do the asymmetric leveraging of China with innovation. And I'll just give you two quick examples of what we can do and we are not doing. The Americans, when they realized that they're behind the Chinese, last month Hexit signed an order, get Det 201. The CTOs of Palantir, Thinking Machines Lab, and Dural, as colonels in the military. Why? Because the military was saying we can't share data, this, that. He said, they are colonels, they'll visit your ops room, this, that, and they'll do your AI. And they have picked two commands, and Indocom, Eurocom, and said Microsoft will do the, large language models, and Dural will do the AI agents, and somebody will do that. Now, all these things are definitely possible in our context, but we are not doing it. Dronery is another matter. If you do it, I mean, look what Ukraine has done. The short point that I make it, that these structural corrections, theater commands, cultural corrections, they have no budgetary costs. 60 to 70% have no budgetary. But अगर हम वो भी नहीं करेंगे, defense budget भी नहीं करेंगे, then we are in very serious trouble. And the last point I wish to make is, you said Delhiites. Delhiites should not instantly, but sometime down the line should worry about the PLA rocket force. I mean, Pakistan was nothing. Those missiles will fall on our head, and with nagging accuracy. So I think when the Prime Minister was speaking of the Sudarshan Chakra, this is what he was meaning, a defense citadel, AD, topology, long-range precision strike, powered with AI. So many ideas, but they need to be put into action.
Absolutely. And, I was just reading some declassified documents from the 1960s out of the MEA, and there was some fascinating writing about us protecting ourselves from Chinese missiles and all that, which was the thing then. But thank you very much, gentlemen. Absolutely.
Book talks of strategic support force.
Yes.
10 years back you started writing.
Can I just make
Yes, of course.
I don't know about the others, but hearing Raj, I'm getting a bit worried about the Chinese. And I just want to say that I think while the US is, or rather Trump, seems to have weakened the international coalition that the United States has built over the years and could be retreating, as you rightly said, I think, from this region. And the Chinese are preparing to take over. But I don't think it's going to be easy for them. Because I don't see, for example, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Australia, India, acquiescing to a Chinese overlordship. So I think that would be a difficult time, and maybe we'll have multipolarity in Asia for the interregnum, which may be a long interregnum.
Absolutely. In fact, I was, General Shukla, I must add, is someone I've known for many years, and he's been talking about dronery even before it became a fashionable thing to say. I mean, when he was GOC&C art track, he was telling me that we need to actually convert entire units of the Indian Army into, drone warfare and stuff like that. So he was always ahead of the curve, and possibly he will. It is now, but in the last 5 or 6 years, after Russia, Ukraine and all that. But, absolutely fascinating insights into the hardening state and the hard positions that we are in, currently because of this hardening state. I'd like to open the floor now for questions. Just please identify yourself, keep your questions short. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is GB Bagai. The Chinese are avoiding armed conflicts altogether. Then why are they strengthening their military? Is it only for intimidation in terms of potential that they have? And if they are not interested in armed conflict, there is zero chance of them invading Taiwan. Would you agree?
See, I would agree with you. What are they doing in Taiwan? So I'll give you some figures. 2022, their rehearsals had 2 brigades. Today they have 42 brigades. 2022, I think they committed 1/3 of their amphibious capacity into exercises. Today it is 2/3. The PLA rocket force, it is not just cruise, ballistic, hypersonics, it's dronery. They are placing orders in millions of drones. So I think what they are really going at it is to tell the Americans that, listen, This is how the military balance has swung in the Western Pacific, first island chain, not globally. Would you want a contest? And a very transactional Trump is more likely to say no than yes.
Yeah.
Why should he contest? And I think he's also, Trump is trying to do a deal. जिस दिन deal हो जाएगा वो ताइवान छोड़ के और हमको छोड़ के he's going to scoot. That's my, so they are not really going to fight. But see, by capacity, India's problem is capacity. Our strategic military bureaucracy moves files. It doesn't move at the pace of winning the competition.
Right.
If we can just do that, the Chinese will back off.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Shikha Agarwal. My question would be to Ranade, sir. Sir, with regards to Xi meeting the Prime Minister and also the Prime Minister of Egypt, I would like to understand that as per the protocol, it should have been Li Qiang and not Xi. So what is happening within China's domestic politics? Because by far Xi Jinping has maintained a balance between them as far as the NSCS and also the Secretariat was concerned. So why this kind of an elevation? And also this is coming after, you know, we have reports about Liu Qianchao, who was till now playing this kind of a role within the foreign policy domain, he having been arrested. So what is happening over there? And since you are the only one who can answer it, so I would like to, yeah.
No, I think it's, firstly, this is a very rare occurrence that Chi is the one who's meeting. He's not number one, number two, number three in the Politburo. But he's probably the most powerful person in the Politburo Standing Committee after Xi Jinping. Because he controls his office, his internal office. He controls the security setup around him. And he prepares all the briefs, etc. So, I mean, he's privy to everything that happens that Xi Jinping does, including possibly organizational files that every bureaucrat knows, you know, postings, transfers, and promotions are the key. So he looks at all that. So I think someone else has written that, you know, it is a party's interface with foreign visitors that Xi Jinping has introduced. I don't know about that. We'll have to wait and see, because if Xi Jinping takes a decision, I don't see anyone really obstructing him. So unless it's to work out some, finer points or whatever. But as I said, either it reflects, and I'm not clear on it yet, either it reflects a rise in Chi's position, or it could suggest that Xi Jinping's circle of trusted advisors has shrunk even more, and therefore he is now leaning more on Chi. But Chi has been with him right through. And as I said, this is the first time we are seeing this phenomenon. He has met 3 people so far independently. And as I said about the banquet part, luckily it didn't happen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for a very interesting discussion. But I think it moved way beyond the theme of the book. And I'd like to return and ask you, Jayadeva, this point you just mentioned about shrinking circle of advisors. There have been reports recently from Taiwan and others, this Epoch Times, about Xi Jinping facing problems. Could you say something about on the veracity of those reports? And according to them, I think you would know better. He has already been, he's much less powerful. It's not a purge, it's not the old style thing. So could you say something about the internal state of play on that, please? It must be in the book, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Thank you.
Well, you're talking about very current stuff, so it's probably not in the book. But I will respond with... I'll just make 3 short points. Firstly, I don't find anything to substantiate the theory that Xi Jinping has suffered a setback and that he has been weakened. This is a consistent line that is being put out, but I have not found anything. I mean, he continues to chair Politburo Standing Committee meetings. His name continues to appear with the same increased frequency in Chinese official media, and that's a clear indicator, as you would know, of how powerful or otherwise the person is. His thoughts continue to be propagated in the army and elsewhere. So I don't find his, I don't think that his power is weakened. The second point about, his advisors, etc. Yes, maybe the circle of advisors has shrunk. In fact, it has shrunk. People have disappeared. His own appointees have fallen by the wayside. I mean, we saw what happened to Chin Kang and others. The foreign minister picked up by him, promoted by him, and then he was a casualty. But, the problem for Xi Jinping will be as the next party congress approaches. Whom does he select into the central committee? Because last time they said that he had personally vetted every member of the central committee and upwards. So that's going to be a problem. Secondly, as he stays in office, he is getting further removed from the younger cadres, the cadres who are coming in. So he will not know them personally. He'll have to bank on his trusted lieutenants to suggest names, which means they will be building up their support base rather than him. So I think to an extent there is a weakening. But as I said, on balance, I don't see that Xi Jinping's position is weakened. The third point I'll make is that the security apparatus that he has built up has got strengthened over time, and all the controls are with him. And he's got people like Wang Xiaohong, who's the state councillor in charge of public security, who has, or through him, every member of the Politburo Standing Committee and Politburo are under surveillance. Everything what they do is monitored by the security apparatus, which did not happen earlier. So now you can interpret that as a sign of his feeling shaky, or on the other hand, his strengthening himself. So I don't see, frankly, Xi Jinping weakening or a threat to him. And finally, most of these reports, and we've tried to track them back, most of them emanate from Falun Gong sources. So you can understand immediately where it's coming. Now, I'm not saying that something cannot happen suddenly. Neither am I saying that the Chinese leaders are not plotting against him. They are known to be pretty deft at it, and they take their own time. But I don't see anything happening right now. And as I said, after this, the way he's dealt with the US, his stock seems to be up.
Sorry for a supplementary, small one. How then to understand the heavy turnover of top personnel, especially in the PLA? Yes. They don't select it trusted.
So, Mr. Ranade has to be right on the other accounts. He's such an expert. But the PLA, if Xi's power is coming from the PLA, he has a lot to worry. I haven't heard for a long time the Eastern Theatre Commander getting sacked during exercises, the Northern Theatre Commander. The number 2 man in the CMC, whose name I can't pronounce, was the guy that Xi was trying to purge. And he's purging all Xi's appointees. Out of the 7 generals in the CMC, Xi appointees, only 4 are left. So in the PLA, and he, the number 2 man, I'm told has the backing of Hu Jintao in the Communist Youth League. So that should be a source of worry for Xi. On all the other accounts, Mr. Ranade may be right.
I was half expecting you to come out to that. But I'll just say that Chang Yaosha, who's the senior vice chairman of the Military Commission, he's a second generation family friend of Xi Jinping.
And therefore also right?
Well, I don't think he's rival. He's older. He's here for the second term. And they're very close by all accounts. But, anything is possible there.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we'll wrap now. Thanks for your observations, and thank you for being such a patient audience. And I think we'll, Namrata, over to you.
Thank thank you everyone for coming, and I think we'll wrap it up now because we have not overshot the time, we are right on time. So thank you all for coming, and I think you'll agree with me, it was indeed a very enlightening discussion for all of us here. So thank you again.